about the first step in any sexual encounter. What is it? It's nothing tangible. It's a conversation, and it's known as consent. Consent's been defined in many ways because it's part of that area of your life called the gray area, the part where people don't want to talk to you about something that makes them uncomfortable. My name is Kara Jordan, and apparently I have no shame because today we're going to talk about consent. And I want you to know before I get any further that it's okay to enjoy yourself. It's okay to laugh. Ultimately, I want you to come out of this experience with a positive feeling that I hope translates into you feeling more positive and empowered about important decisions in your life. Bless you. So let's start by talking about how you're approaching sex all wrong. Because that's how we do these conversations, right? A speaker stands in front of you and tells you what behaviors you shouldn't do because it puts you at risk. You sit and pretend to listen while playing on your phone in your lap, or maybe you're staring at your crotches. I don't know, I don't judge. But we've had this dialogue for years. And that might explain why in 2014, a study published that we haven't had a decrease in our sexual assault statistics in the last 50 years. Let's figure out how we got here. The U.S. Department of Education has a standard that all students must meet in order to obtain a high school diploma. Now, there's lots of standards, but we're just going to focus on Health Standard 11, which states that students will be able to know health risk factors and techniques to manage and reduce those risks. You'll be able to judge that by being able to meet these 3 benchmarks, but the one that we're going to most focus on is the one who knows how to make positive health decisions related to injury, tobacco, nutrition, physical activity, sexuality, and alcohol and other drugs. It sounds like a catch-all, right? So why don't we just interject consent conversation into the curriculum? You may be thinking, Kara, kids already have so much that they have to do at school. Why are you trying to add to that workload? First of all, I want you to know that I'm a total monster. Second, it is completely necessary that somebody that has one of our U.S. diplomas understands the basic concept of consent. Why is it so important? Because unfortunately, we view consent as something we perceive rather than a statement of fact. By focusing on consent, we can shine a positive light on human sexuality rather than shame or blame, which can leave someone feeling out of control. The conversation of assault is often somber and serious. By using consent, though, we can use humor and sex-positive concepts to allow an individual to feel empowered. Remember earlier when I said that consent wasn't clearly defined? I was being literal. This is the U.S. Department of Justice, and on that website, if you search up sexual assault, they give you a wonderful definition that says sexual assault is any type of sexual contact or behavior that occurs without explicit consent of the recipient. Okay, that's a great definition, right? So what's explicit consent? Well, if you search explicit consent, it gives you a definition of sexual assault, and that's about it. So there's no defined term. So today is the day that explicit consent is going to be defined. What a moment in history you're about to be a part of. Before I define the term, though, I'm going to start a timer. I think it's stop when I say so, or start when I say so. Both, I guess. All right. You can go ahead and start the timer. Explicit consent. Communicated permission that is granted to conduct clearly stated intents of specific sexual acts and can be revoked at any point during the encounter. What does that mean, right? Communicated permission. Communicated permission means that the idea is coming from the sender to the receiver. An example of this is when someone says, I want a back rub, or the much rarer, I want to give you a back rub. It allows the receiver of the message the ability to understand the sender's intentions and then provide their own, as explained in this diagram. Just because someone wants a back rub doesn't mean that they're going to be getting a back rub. This also disrupts the process of assumption. By communicating with language, we ensure that our desires are clearly understood, which includes those desires that we are not interested in, as well as being aware of our partners. Granted to conduct clearly stated intents of specific sexual acts means that each sexual act must have permission to conduct. Now, if in this back rub scenario, if somebody says, I want a back rub, stick to the shoulders and the spine, and somebody's hands start wandering, you can say, that's not my back, get back to work. And then on the other side, if somebody's giving a back rub, they can say, ew, I don't consider that to be part of your back, and I'm not going to rub it for you. And then they don't have to rub it. Consent is fantastic, isn't it? Finally, the part that says that may be revoked at any point during the encounter means that consent can be taken away at any point during the act. No party should feel required to commit to an act until completion because they said yes at some point. So if the back rub recipient has had enough, they can say so. The act will stop. If the back rubber has had enough, they can say so. The act will stop. There is no contract with consent. It's all communication. I stopped my timer. You're the best. Everyone give her a round of applause. If I may. Thank you, milady. Oh my gosh, I'm not good at math, guys. I'm going to have to break this another way. I stopped my timer, and I know I'm a pretty fast talker, but teaching you that one term only took 2 minutes and 13 seconds out of your life. 2 minutes and 13 seconds that have been taught to you to help you understand that we are not helpless. This is contrary to the way that we currently address sexual encounters, which focus on assault prevention. Now, I want you to understand why I have a problem with this concept of sexual assault prevention. As it's defined, sexual assault is when an individual does not get to decide. The idea that it's preventable gives an illusion that there's a choice when clearly there isn't. The idea that a victim can prevent something that they have no control over is a fallacy. It's more frustrating that I usually have to explain this as a metaphor, but unfortunately it's the only way that I really can get over this conditioning that we've been taught to believe. If you're at a stoplight and the light is red and someone slams into the back of you, it's not your fault. If you're at a mall and someone steals your wallet, it's not your fault. If you're hanging out with a group of people and somebody in that group or someone randomly comes in, overpowers you, and assaults you, it's not your fault. You are not accountable for the actions of others. You are not responsible for their actions. So we all know that knowledge is power, and when you deprive someone of knowledge, you deprive them of understanding. And that's why this concept needs to be taught as early as possible. Now, the standard age to teach this is level 4, which is grades 9 through 12. Again, some of you might be thinking, Kara, kids don't need to know what consent is until they're much older. Again, I need to remind you I'm a total monster. And it is completely necessary that somebody understand their right to say yes or no, no matter their age. Now, does consent have to be sexualized? Absolutely not. Let's imagine consent is sharing. Imagine a child on a playground who takes a toy from a playmate without permission. How would you address the situation? And here's a script that you might find handy. Those are not your things. They do not belong to you. Your friend does not have to share them with you, and you don't have to share with your friend. You do have to ask your friend if you can use this thing that belongs to them, and your friend has to ask you if they can use this thing that belongs to you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say yes. No is not the end of the world. It is not a bad word. You do not have to like what they tell you, but you will respect their decision. Children reach the age of reasoning around age 7, which they can then understand their results to actions. And by having this conversation with a child about sharing, they're already prepped to understand the power of consent. We spend years talking about what a penis is and what a vagina is, how to make a baby, what sexually transmitted infections are, how to prevent making those babies and spreading those infections. But we never talk about the first step in any sexual encounter. What is consent? We went from a society that quite really talked about sexuality, the one that explores it freely. And while there are several factors in sexual education that need to be revised, I find this to be one of the most important. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what part of the gender, sexuality, or sex spectrum that you find yourself. Everyone needs to know the right to consent. Thank you.